Welcome. This is the regular board meeting of the Poway Unified School Board, and it is 6:05, and we are officially in session, and it is August 10th. For our first item, our report out of closed session, Clerk Patel.
Good evening. In the matter of public appointment, on a motion by Sellers, second by Zane, the board voted to approve the appointment of Mr. James Jimenez for the position of Associate Superintendent of Personnel Support Services. The vote of the board was unanimous. 1.2, in the matter of public employment, on a motion by T.J. Zane, second by Board Member Beatty, the board voted to approve the appointment of Tui Lana Nguyen for the position of Director of Education, Technology, and Information. Vote of the board was unanimous. In the matter of public employment, on a motion by Darshana Patel and second by T.J. Zane, the board voted to approve the appointment of Tina Ziegler in the position of high school principal. The board vote was unanimous. In the matter of public employment, on a motion by T.J. Zane, second by Kimberly Beatty, the board voted to approve the appointment of Scott Corso in the position of middle school principal. The vote of the board was unanimous. In the matter of public employment, on a motion by Kimberly Beatty, second by Darshana Patel, the board voted to approve the employment of Jill Halsley in the position of elementary school principal. The vote of the board was as follows. Ayes, Michelle O'Connor Ratcliffe, T.J. Zane, Darshana Patel, Kimberly Beatty, with one abstention by Charles Sellers. Charles, did you want to make a comment?
Ms. Halsey is taking over the position of principal of Canyon View Elementary School, SNOOF 22, and my wife is the librarian there, so I felt it inappropriate to vote on her direct supervisor.
With item number 2 on the agenda, there's nothing to report. Item number 3, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D1, case number OAH 2017-021138, on a motion by Board Member Beatty, second by Board Member Zane, the board voted to settle the case, what was it? That case that I just read, and the ayes were unanimous. In closed session, conference with legal counsel, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D1, consolidated case numbers OAH 2017-05026236, OAH 2017-060671. The votes were unanimous. Item number 4, nothing to report. Item number 5, nothing to report. And item number 6, nothing to report. Did I miss one? Second elementary principal. Oh, yes. Sorry. Going back to number 1, in the matter of public employment.
Had you worried? Oh.
I'm very sorry about that. If you could see me, I would be blushing, really. On a motion by T.J. Zane, second by Darshana Patel, the board voted to approve the employment of Lisa Wilkin in the position of elementary school principal, and the vote of the board was unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Patel. At this time, I'd like to invite everyone to stand and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and I'd like to note that all members are in attendance today, including our brand new student members. First day, Ms. Mishra. Am I saying it right? I want to make sure I got it. Mishra. All right, I'll say it right next time. So, and with that, our welcome to the public would have been Mr. Zane, but he passed it off to Ms. Mishra.
Okay, and I'd like to thank Mr. Zane for allowing me to do the welcome to the public. Welcome to the monthly meeting of the Board of Education. Item C is placed on our agenda to enable members of our community to bring items that are not placed anywhere else on the agenda to the board's attention. If you would like to address the board on any agenda item, please complete a speaker slip. All requests to speak must be submitted to the executive assistant before the agenda item comes up. If you are requesting an agenda item be pulled for public discussion from Section E, Consent Calendar, a speaker slip must be submitted to the Executive Assistant now, as approval of the consent calendar is one of the first items up for approval. The Board is responsible for setting policy and direction for the students of Poway Unified School District. It is important to the community that civility and good role modeling be a very real part of our meetings. Students are always present at board meetings, and our meetings are live streamed via the internet, and recorded copies are posted on the PUSD website. Speaking time is limited to 3 minutes per speaker, with a maximum of 15 minutes per side of each topic, unless waived by board president. There will be a 30-second yellow warning light when time is running out. Speakers may only speak on one topic under item C and may not defer their speaking time to another individuality. Vulgarity and profanity will not be allowed. If you have a complaint or charge against a specific PUSD employee, it is recommended that you submit a formal complaint as outlined in our board procedure 4.106.2. The final step in this process provides the board the ability to hear an appeal of the complaint if the board so chooses. If you are voicing a complaint against an employee, in order to protect the employee's right to adequate notice before a hearing of such complaint and to preserve the ability of the board to legally consider the complaint in any subsequent evaluation of the employee, it is the policy of the board to hear the complaint in closed session. If you have any written material for the board to review that would provide more specific information, please submit them to the Executive Assistant. The Brown Act does not permit board action or extended discussion of any item not on the agenda, but your concerns will be referred to staff. With that said, welcome and thank you for coming.
Didn't know it was going to be so long, did you? All right. Nicely done, though. Thank you. Item A6 is next. This is approval of our minutes, and we only have one board meeting, our June 29, 2017 regular board meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
And on a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Dr. Patel, are there any amendments? All right, then. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Minutes are approved. Next is item A7. This is approval of our agenda and agenda sequence, and I do have, do you want to pull? Okay, I'll turn this over to Dr. Phelps.
So staff would like to pull agenda items D203, D204, and D602 from tonight's agenda, pending further review. Madam President, are there any other additional agenda items that board members wish to hear out of sequence?
Seeing none, at this time I'll ask for, well, let's see, let's have a motion to approve with those, minus those 3 items.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, on a motion by Ms. Beatty, second by Mr. Zane. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the agenda is unanimously approved, an agenda sequence. This takes us to A8, the approval of our consent calendar. Anything, would any members of the community like to have any items been requested to be pulled by members of the community? No? All right, then I'll start at the end. Ms. Mishra, anything to pull off the consent calendar? Thank you.
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
And none for me. Okay, so with that, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented?
Motion to approve.
On a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Mr. Sellers. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously as well. We're on a roll. All right, this takes us to our, well, B1, we have no student board member reports, so we'll move ahead to our superintendent's briefing. Dr. Phelps.
Well, welcome back, and welcome back. Welcome to your first board meeting, Shana Mishra. Welcome to your new position as well as to the dais. I'd like to also welcome Jennifer Burks, her first night at the dais as well, and it's also her birthday this evening, so it's our first board meeting. We also look forward to working with both of you in this year, so thank you. I hope that you all had an excellent summer. It seemed like it went by super, super fast. Even though our schools were out, many of our students and staff were still working really hard, including our Black Mountain teacher, Danielle Reyes, one of only 5 in the state awarded the Avid Teacher Advocacy Award. And you can also refer to your board packet for a complete list of all of our recognitions. I'm really excited that this will be my first back to school with Poway Unified. I had the opportunity to welcome back our students and our families on August 1st. Valley Elementary School already opened their doors to their children, and we had an opportunity to walk the classrooms with the principal. And so I want to thank the Tigers for their warm welcome and enthusiasm of learning, even though summer still really didn't end at that point. So on August 23rd, the rest of Team PUSD, nearly 4,000 teachers, administrators, and students, support staff will begin the important work of educating our nearly 36,000 young minds that will pass through all of our doors. So we're really excited about that. As I told the kids at Valley Elementary, a school really isn't a school, and it seems very empty without our children in it. So we were very excited for them to return back. Walking onto each of our campuses, we instantly feel the familiar comforts of our homes away from home. Thanks to the effort of our custodial and our maintenance staff over the summer, they worked really hard on our buildings and our campuses. They look immaculate. They worked really hard to get our new facility projects done, that includes new roofs, new classrooms, and our solar energy panels, which are all complete. So I want to thank them for all their hard work during the summer to get our schools ready. My vision for the 2017 and 18 school year is to propel our district and our students forward by leveraging our best practices and developing new educational programs and initiatives that support our district goals. We must expand the way that our students learn and the way our teachers teach, and creatively using our resources for maximum impact. As we advance innovative programs for students and staff, PUSD will be developing and redesigning our educational technology department under the direction of our new Associate Superintendent, Jennifer Burks. Ms. Burks is taking the place of our retired Chief Technology Officer, Mr. Gravina. The goal of the Technology and Innovation Department, which includes both our Educational Technology and our Information Technology Department, will be working together to develop a department that supports staff with professional learning opportunities and resources to continue to enhance 21st century teaching and learning while supporting our district goal of college and career readiness and providing our students with the highest quality learning experience. Finally, as your superintendent, my hope is that the new year brings promise, friendship, knowledge, inspiration, kindness, and continued academic excellence here at Poway. So speaking of excellence, our Excellence in Education video interns are still on summer break. So I wanted to take this opportunity to share another short video clip. Some of you may have seen the recent story of the unique friendship between Paul and Camden, two third graders at Pomerado Elementary School. The story went national, picked up by the Today Show and Good Morning America. It is a true example of the kindness that we all show here at Poway Unified, and we are so proud of them.
When his best buddy needed a new wheelchair, he stepped right in. Tonight, we're seeing how a motivated 8-year-old made a real difference in his friend's life by raising money to make it happen. CBS News 8's Abby Alford is live with his efforts to keep Camden rolling. Abby?
Carlo, third graders Camden Hushon and Paul Burnett met here on the playground at Pomerado Elementary School. Paul says that he didn't, and he still doesn't see his friend with a disability. What he sees is inspiration to go beyond being a good friend.
I'm going to limbo.
8-year-olds Camden Hushon and Paul Burnett met in kindergarten on the playground at Pomerado Elementary School in Poway.
I just saw him, and I thought he was going to be a cool person, and he actually turned out to be cool.
Camden was born with a tumor in his spine, and to remove it and live, he would become paralyzed from the chest down. You'll still find Camden on the adaptive basketball court and ice hockey rink. Now the boys are going into the third grade, and Paul noticed Camden needed new wheels.
I kind of want a new wheelchair because I will start not tipping forwards more.
Paul saw how Camden's demo wheelchair improved his independence and attitude.
We go on walks now, and he's not scared to fall over with this chair.
Throw it to me.
So hearing about GoFundMe on a YouTube video, Paul told his mom, Jenny, he was going to raise money so Camden could have a new wheelchair so he could do more things on his own.
It was very emotional. So he knows that Camden couldn't go to the bathroom. He's seen Camden fall. a few times.
In just 2 weeks, they exceeded the $3,900 goal to buy a new fitted wheelchair.
I'm grateful. I'm very grateful.
And so is Camden.
So you get your new chair.
Yay! I was happy because I have this kind of friend to be kind to me.
An unbreakable bond that's making their moms stronger.
But yeah, she's my sister.
You can still help out. While Camden will receive his wheelchair next month, a few weeks after that, he'll have to go into surgery. That'll be on the first day of 3rd grade, and he'll be out of school for at least 2 months, and his mom will not be able to work. To learn more about the Keep Camden Rolling Fund, just go to our website at cbs8.com and click on the Hot button. Barbara Lee and Carlo.
A heartwarming story about true friendship, isn't it?
Those are the best of buddies.
Absolutely.
Our thoughts are also with Camden as he has surgery coming up as well too, and Paul raised $6,425 up to date, which is far exceeds their original $3,900 goal. So this is just one example of some of the wonderful things that our students here at Poway do for others and give back to our community. So we're very proud of them. I want to extend a warm welcome to our new and promoting district leaders. If you're here in the audience, if you wouldn't mind stand when I say your name so that you can be recognized, I just want to give you a warm welcome to Poway. Mr. James Jimenez, our Associate Superintendent of Personnel Support Services, welcome. Lana Nguyen, our Director of Education Technology and Information. Jill Housey, the new principal at Canyon View Elementary School. Lisa Wilkin, our new principal at Sunset Hills Elementary School. Tina Ziegler, definitely not a new principal in the district, but new principal of Westview High School. Scott Corso, a new principal at Black Mountain Middle School. Eric Takesha was announced at our last meeting, but in case he's here, he'll be our new principal at Del Sur Elementary School. So I'd like to welcome you to Team PUSD. We're thrilled to have such talented and passionate educators joining us, and we wish you luck in your new positions. We'd like to congratulate our dear colleagues who also left us for other jobs or promotions and retirements. So tonight the board will receive the findings of the Fiscal Crisis Management Assistant Team, or our FIGMAT report. In the spirit of continuous improvement and reflection, district leadership is committed to working with staff to address the findings and recommendations as we move forward. And that concludes my presentation tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Phelps. At this time, this takes us to our board member reports, and I'm going to start down at the end with Ms. Mishra. First one, no pressure.
No pressure. Good evening. Tonight I want to share with you a personal story of mine, which unfortunately many girls in our district face. As some of you may know, I have been heavily involved in robotics since before I entered high school. The majority of members of my high school team were enthusiastic and committed young women, but that trend did not follow onto my high school team. In my freshman year, the number of girls in our club did not even make up 1/4 of our entire team. As I attempted to learn the machine skills necessary to participate in the club, I faced a major backlash from several of my male counterparts who claimed that I did not belong working with them simply on the basis that I am female. Like most other women in the STEM field, I had to work twice as hard just to prove myself to the rest of my team. Last year, I was promoted to lead of manufacturing, and I had a team of 10 other students who worked with me. My goal then was to have half my team comprised of young women, and I'm very proud to say that we met that goal. This year, I expect to not only meet this goal again with my team, but I'd like to expand the breadth of that goal to the entire district. One of my objectives as your student representative is to encourage and empower young women to not be afraid in pursuing their dreams and achieving their goals. This year, I want to set our district beyond the rest and create a safe place where everyone, both young men and women, feel free to flourish, express themselves, and participate in what they love without fear of discrimination or lack of support. Now briefly, a bit about myself. My name is Shana Mishra, and I have been in this amazing school district since preschool, and I can't believe that I will be starting my senior year in a few weeks. I'm in robotics, peer counseling, ASB, and Mentors of RBHS Club at my school. I love woodworking, photography, and dance. To everyone sitting alongside me on this dais, I want to sincerely thank you for this opportunity. I'm looking forward to learning from and getting to know each and every one of you. I'm excited to make this a productive year and see new changes implemented into our school systems. I'm honored to have this opportunity to represent the over 30,000 unique individuals in our school district. This morning, I was able to meet with the other high school students in ASB, and together we can improve and expand the horizons of how our schools impact all of those involved. This year, I will do my best to work with you and work for you to create the type of schools that our students need. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. I don't have a formal report. I just want to welcome all the new faces in new places that we have here and to commend you. It's my personal belief that the only way we achieve personal growth is by stepping outside of our comfort zones. And taking on a new professional challenge is one of the greatest steps outside one's comfort zone. And I particularly appreciate all the latecomers who've had to step up on very short notice to take on challenges or re-challenges in the case of Eric back there. And, to step up and be part of the team and basically do what needed to be done. And I appreciate that, and that's very much a Poway spirit. And I welcome all of you and look forward to working with you.
So in the spirit of summer vacation, I don't have a board report. I just did want to say I was struck by how crowded that side of the dais is. I haven't seen it since I can remember, so it's neat. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 2017-2018 school year. I feel like we've already started. Although my family made a conscious decision to stay close to home to have a more relaxed summer and ended up being a really busy summer. Over the summer, I was able to attend a few community events, including the National Field Day event for Poway Amateur Radio, where I got to meet some scouts that came out and showed talents on what they could do with their amateur radio skills. I also attended the Spirit of the Fourth Parade in Rancho Bernardo with a few of my colleagues here. And I learned that those water guns really are important, and I really did need to bring those extra gallons of water. I had no idea, but I'll be prepared next year. And also, I attended the National Night Out event at the San Diego Police Department Northeastern Division Station, which is a great opportunity for the community to come out and show solidarity and support the neighborhood watch programs in the community. And while our district has been very, very busy and focused filling vacancies around the district, as many new faces we see around here at the dais as well as in our leadership, I've also been diligent in my board responsibilities, having submitted both my personal board goals as well as my suggested goals for the superintendent. I've also worked on reviewing the FCMAT Special Education Review Report, which we'll get a presentation on today, as well as looking at the updated board policies that we're going to be given piece by piece in the coming months. Additionally, board member Zane and I attended the California Suburban School District's meeting in Sacramento, where we were able to go into lengthy discussions regarding legislation around school start time, teacher probationary status, charter schools, as well as changes potentially in the 11th grade SBAC testing. We also discussed at length the governor's budget and release of Prop 98 state bond implementation. I'm very excited for this school year to begin, not just so that my 3 girls can get back to learning in their classrooms, but also because I'm looking forward to some of the real positive growth and change that our entire school district will be seeing in the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Patel. I'll be very brief, as usual, but I had completely forgotten about the 4th of July parade, and it was a lot of fun joining fellow board members in soaking the taxpayers with water guns. It was a great time. Also, ditto what Dr. Patel said as far as our coverage of the California Association of Large Suburban School Districts in Sacramento last week. That was a productive meeting, more productive than I think some prior meetings, so that was a great meeting. And then lastly, I also just want to recognize, you had mentioned going to some amateur radio event with Scouts, but we do have 2 Scouts in the audience here this evening. We have Nathaniel Leslie and Nicholas Leslie, am I correct? Go ahead, take a stand. I assume you guys are here for citizenship in the community or nation. Which one is it? Community. Welcome. What troop you with? 622. Well, welcome. Thanks for coming, and best of luck to you on your trail to Eagle. I have no further report. Thank you.
It was a great time. I think almost all of our high schools hosted a fireworks show, and I got to 2 of them because Westview did theirs on July 3rd. So I got to do that one, and after our Spirit of the 4th parade in Rancho Bernardo, the fireworks at Bernardo Heights RB High School. So those were wonderful. What fun. We've had a really busy summer in my family. One of my kiddos was in extended school year. That was a great success. I never missed the bus, not once this year, first time. Did a 5th grade band head start with one of our 5th grade band teachers actually taught it privately over the summer, so a lot of kids got a chance to get into that, including my daughter. Swim lessons at Mount Carmel High School's pool. Got to have coffee with our new student board member, learn a little bit about her, and I think we're all going to learn a lot more about her as the year goes on. We didn't talk that much about robotics at that, so that was new for me. I also got to get to the Soul Effects reception, and actually with Mr. Zane. This is a program that's been at Twin Peaks Middle School for a while and has, this year, I think the name of the program is Switch, actually. Switch is expanding this year to Del Norte High School. So it was really great to hear about their path and all of the great things they're doing with kids in middle school and now taking it to 9th grade health curriculum for a few weeks at Del Norte. So I'm excited about that too. We have a couple of new presidents of our teachers union and our classified employee unions, and got to meet with both of those ladies and excited to forge those relationships. It's very important for us as a board. Wonderful family vacations here, there, and everywhere. Looking forward to the APSM Welcome Back Breakfast tomorrow morning, D39, and the new teacher orientation next week. So first day of school is right around the corner. I'm banned from bringing that up at my house. My kids are not happy anytime I mention it, but it's coming, and we're excited. So thanks, everyone, for being here. And with that, we'll move right along, I think, to our presentation? Yes, this is the FCMAT report. So item B4, presentation of Fiscal Crisis Management Assistance Team Report, Assessment of Special Education Programs. Dr. Robertson.
Thank you, Madam President. As part of our ongoing growth that Dr. Phelps' message just shared earlier, we engage in this process of reflecting on our practices and seeking to improve. So we partnered with the Fiscal Crisis and Management Assistance Team, better known to all of us as FCMAT, to provide us potential next steps to strengthen our educational program for our students. The FCMAT team conducted interviews with various educators in Poway and analyzed our financial and staffing data. I'd like to take a moment to thank all the PUSD team members that helped to make this report possible, because it was definitely a very deep study with all of us. So tonight we welcome the FCMAT team. We're joined by Shailene Hart, the FCMAT Intervention Specialist. She's to my right. And Joanne Murphy, who is to my left, is one of the consultants and has previously worked in Poway. Both are here to present their recommendations as we move forward in our district. So thank you for joining us this evening.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Good evening, board members. Dr. Phelps, thank you so much for having us back this evening. My name is Shailene Hart. My name is not on that presentation up there. I know Mr. Mike Fine, our Chief Executive Officer, would love to be here with you this evening, but unfortunately due to an illness, his body wasn't cooperative, so I'm pitch hitting for him, and I will do my best to communicate the information that he has in the presentation this evening. I know you've all received the report, and hopefully you've had a chance to review that. Sitting to my right is Joanne Murphy, one of our great special ed consultants. Also on the team for this study was Dr. Jackie Kirk-Martinez, Don Dennison, and Jackie Martin, who are all special ed consultants that we use on a regular basis. Just go along here. All right, so just to give you a little bit of background information in terms of what FCMAT is all about. FCMAT was established back in 1992 in accordance with Assembly Bill 1200. And it was to assist local educational agencies in complying with fiscal accountability standards. And basically it came about because of the insolvency of Richmond School District, which was later known as West Contra Costa. So AB 1200 is what put into effect the interim reporting so that hopefully county offices and school districts could work together and keep school districts out of that fiscal insolvency and that fiscal crisis portion of it. We are an independent external state agency, and a lot of times when people hear the word FCMAT, they really focus on that fiscal crisis piece of our name. That is a portion of the work that we do, but it is a very small portion of the work that we do. So if a school district is experiencing financial difficulties, if they happen to take a state loan, we definitely get involved in those school districts. But a majority of the work that we do is that management assistance piece, which is like what we did when we came out to your school district, and we were invited out. In this particular study, it was the area of focus was special education, and so I think over the last couple of years we've done close to 30 of these studies. So when we were first invited out to your school district, we really narrowed down the scope of work, and if you take a look there, almost everything is listed. This was really a comprehensive look at your special education study. And really the only two things that we didn't analyze were the special education transportation and the cost analysis for returning programs from the non-public schools. There's the rest of that list. So we came out and to talk a little bit about our approach. So prior to coming out, we ask your school district to produce an awful lot of documents ahead of time so that our team has a chance to review those. And then we come out and we conduct those interviews, and I think we spent a number of days here on your campuses, at your district office, involved in those confidential interviews. And then when we walk away, a lot of times we are involved in that deeper analysis and going deeper into that to produce the report. One of the things you need to understand is that something does not make it into our report based on a single occurrence. Okay, findings aren't reached based on one piece of information. So it's something we're taking a look at documents, we're doing interviews, we take a look at things that are available online like CDE information and state information. But the source of the information is comprehensive, and that's how it gets into our reports. One of the things I really want to point out, if you're not familiar with FCMAT, we write to the deficit model. Now, that's a little bit difficult for a lot of people. It's difficult for me as a former superintendent because I'm used to, hearing about all the great things that are happening. And so when I came to work for FCMAT, that was very difficult for me. But it's just our FCMAT process, and we write to the deficit model, which means that we're not going to tell you all the great things that are happening in your district, although you guys know and are very aware of the great things that are happening into your district. We come out, we take a look, we do the analysis, and we pretty much just, put it as findings and recommendations, trying to write to those gaps and to help you improve in terms of efficiency and effectiveness. So, like I said, these are just some examples of things that were on that document request list. I think we had over 70 documents that we asked your staff to produce ahead of time. I just want to say thank you to your staff. They were very cooperative. They were very responsive, got the documents to us in a very timely manner so that our team had a chance to review those prior to coming in. Mrs. Howard and her staff were very cooperative and should be commended for their prep work that they did to get us ready prior to coming onto site. So, based on the scope and the organizational structure of your school district, we come in and we design our interview schedule and we talk to a number of people. We really ask questions pertaining mostly to policies and procedures, job duties and responsibilities and training. We try to keep those as confidential as possible. One of the things that we do in our reports as well is we don't want to bring attention to a certain group of people or a specific person or a particular job title. So if we hear something, enough and we feel that it's warranted that it needs to be part of the report, a lot of times you'll see in our report that it says interviews of staff indicated such, so that we're not pointing to a particular individual. In terms of interviews, people were very willing to talk to us, and we're very appreciative of that. We talked to lots of people, your board president, your association presidents, just to give you an idea, teachers across the board, general education, special education, preschool teachers, instructional aides, psychologists, related service providers, so really across the gamut of your district. So in terms of the findings and recommendations, obviously we had 11 scope points to cover. In the report, there are 65 recommendations, and the report is just under 50 pages long. So I'm not going to be able to cover all that, so I'm just going to hit some highlights for you. And at the end, there definitely will be an opportunity for you to ask some questions. So hang on to those, and we'll give you an opportunity to do that at the end, okay? The PowerPoint is divided into sections just like our report, and so we'll just kind of be moving through those. All right, first section is fiscal considerations. So in terms of general fund contribution, Poway is no different than any other district in terms of them being concerned about the rising cost of special education. But if you take a look, those first 3 lines when it's talking about the general fund contribution is the percentage that you had to contribute to cover special ed costs. Those first 3 lines do not encompass transportation, because remember, we didn't do transportation as one of our scope points. But that 4th one that we added in there, that 2016-17 that says 60%, when we went back and we did go ahead and analyze the cost of transportation, you could actually add 8% to each one of those, because that's the approximate cost of your transportation over those 3 years. So it actually brings your 16-17 contribution, what was expected at the time, from 52% up to 60%. If you take a look right underneath that, the statewide average right now is 60%, and that's based on the Legislative Analyst's Office just released that figure in February of this year, saying that that state and federal funds would cover only about 40% of special ed costs. So right now the statewide average is that school districts are contributing about 60%. So if you take a look at Poway's average right there, you're right in line with what's happening across the state. All right, and I think we all know, as that one little point happens there, is that typically a district has 85 to 90% of their costs attributed to personnel related costs, and the expenditure increases are driven in large part by district-wide decisions regarding compensation. That hits special ed right along with everybody else. All right, so a comprehensive, one of the things that we noticed is that on the parts where we're talking about recommendations, you're going to see this is a number 4 or number 3 and a number 4 there. This is just a partial list. In the report, there's obviously a more comprehensive list under each one of these sections. So these were just a few of the highlights that we wanted to pull out. And that number 4 is to implement a strong position control system and consider moving primary responsibility for position control from HR to the Business Services Department, because a comprehensive position control system was not necessarily functioning and making it difficult to account for staff, which was very difficult during the study. So this just isn't a special ed issue, but it's critical for all programs and all district functions. So that's one of the things we wanted to highlight right there. In terms of general education support, so these are the kinds of things that happen prior to a student going into special education. So we're talking about your student success team process, your response to intervention and instruction, so called RTI2, the multi-tiered system of supports and positive behavioral interventions and supports. Those are the kinds of things that should be in place for students who are struggling either academically or behaviorally prior to going into special education. So this is something that we took a look at, and we found that a lot of thought and work has been done in these areas, although there isn't a comprehensive, effective system in place across the district. You guys have site-based decision-making, which is very effective for a lot of things. One of the things, though, that we found is that because of the site-based decision-making, it led to different approaches with students and what happened with struggling students across the district. So because of that, just to give you an example, a student, let's say a student who is struggling academically, at school A, may not have a very systematic approach and interventions in place, and so that student may automatically get referred to special education. Whereas at school C, let's say, if they have strong intervention programs in place, that student may go through the student study team process, be referred for those interventions that could be effective for that child, and because we're able to meet their needs prior to that, they would never make it to a special ed referral. So we saw the inconsistencies like that across the district and in some places. So just something to point out there. So again, I'm not going to read every one of these, and you can go through the report more in depth later, and we'll answer any questions you have. But one of the things you would want to do is to establish baseline expectations for response to intervention and instruction to make sure that that's happening consistently across the district. So regardless of where a student is attending school, they're going to get the same level of support, and that's not going to be dependent on where they attend school. In terms of identification rates, you can take a look there at the last 3 years for Poway, and then you can also take a look at the statewide average. Now, taking a look at your 16-17 identification rate of 11.5%, that doesn't look like it's alarmingly, much higher than that statewide average at 10.7%. But one of the things that you do need to see is that there is a little bit of a trend over those last 3 years, that at each year, Poway's identification rate is growing by almost 0.5%. And so if you just kind of move forward and look to the future, if you stay on that trend, you can see that your special ed identification rate is going to continue to climb. One of the things that we think that this points to is those pre-intervention, pre-identification supports, and so maybe taking a look at that really hard, because that a lot of times has a direct impact on your identification rate. But Poway's identification rate isn't largely out of sync with that. So let's see here. One of the things, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes.
Okay. One thing we do want to mention is that the rate of identification for students with autism in your district is significantly higher than both the county in San Diego County and also in the state. So you'll see the D, C, and S after each of those, so you have some comparative. And we know that parents move here because Poway is an excellent district and has a reputation for providing solid services. So autistic family, students with autism, those families are connected, and they talk to each other, and they look for certain districts that provide those good services. So a portion of your increased enrollment may be that, but you're also high in the preschool area. So you'll see some recommendations in the report that recommend that you take a look at your assessment process and the identification process for that.
And we just pulled a few other figures out to show that Poway's identification rate for emotional disturbance is a little below the county level, a little bit more below the state level. Other health impaired is obviously much more, and that one's significant as well. And then the speech or language impairment is also above the county and state levels. In terms of least restrictive environment, we have state and federal laws that mandate that students have the opportunity to be served in general education with their non-disabled peers to the greatest extent possible, and that's what least restrictive environment is all about. The district has a very strong continuum of traditional service options, but the LRE is just kind of inching along. And if you take a look at your rates, even though you are making it with K-12 and you made it except for one indicator with your preschool, you will see that the rates haven't changed an awful lot. And so those targets are going to continue to move. So as you look forward to the future, this could definitely be problematic if we can't seem to move that a little bit more and focus on least restrictive environment. Two factors that we think impede the district's conformance and ability to do that is a strategic plan for change in program delivery has not been adopted. We're still sticking with that traditional service model. And also that the executive director needs to be a member of the decision making in the LSS department. You know, this is a person who is closest to kids, closest to those programs and what's going on, and needs to have a voice at the table.
I think I'd like to add also that this is certainly not a statement about the sequence of program delivery for your special day classes and other programs and services in the district. You have a rock solid and really exemplary traditional model for providing services. A lot of those are special day classes and a huge sequence of that, and that's a good thing. The area that we're talking about here is specifically related to the majority of special ed students who are in RSP and receiving speech and language only services, and some mild to moderate special day classes that need to be in a more less restrictive environment with more access to the general ed. And that's where we're getting the pressure in California from the federal government because we haven't made that kind of progress. So that's just the next step, I think, in program development.
Right. In terms of special education caseloads, one of the things that became apparent through our study is that there's, you know, special education does have some ed code requirements in terms of staffing and caseloads. For the classes that don't have an ed code requirement, though, there was kind of this unofficial guideline, this unofficial document called Class Size and IA, Instructional Assistant Staffing for Programs, which was kind of unknown as to whether it's an official document or if it's just a guideline, and there could be flexibility associated with it. So there was some confusion out there amongst the district, among staff members. So obviously we'll want to take a look at that and determine the formality of that particular staffing ratio. Every district is unique. Some areas obviously are overstaffed, and those are well documented in the report, as others, you know, are appropriately staffed. And one of the things that we'll just kind of highlight there is that your preschool adult to student ratios are generally very low, lower than the norm. So that's something to take a look at. But, you know, we give you the caseload numbers in our report so that you can take a look at it and see if you need to make any changes. You make the decision as to what's right for your students and your programs. See there? Okay. In terms of para-educator staffing, you know, the Ed Code has no specific requirements for instructional assistant staffing beyond the RSP. There's one caveat in there in terms of IAs for RSP teachers. So there are established industry standards, though, and those are usually centered around the intensity of service. So a mild to moderate classroom would not have the level of instructional assistant support that, let's say, a mod to severe classroom would have. And there are no industry standards for the one-to-one aides. But a snapshot of your staffing is kind of outlined there one more time. You are overstaffed at some places, understaffed in others, and again, you can take a look at that. Our next slide, though, is going to really kind of show a little spotlight on something in terms of your instructional assistant staffing. We just took a look at your overall cost, your total cost related to that, and the 16-17 budget approximated $16.6 million that IA staffing would cost. Your one-on-one instructional assistants represent 28.71% of the total cost. That's pretty high. That's just under a third of the cost of all instructional assistants are one-on-one assistants. And so one of the things, your district has a developed SCIA process, which stands for Special Circumstance Instructional Assistance. So if a child seems to need more support, and somebody feels that a child needs an instructional assistant or that kind of support, you have a process in place to go through a formal assessment and to develop goals to determine if the student needs that, first of all, and then if so, to develop goals and to help facilitate that. And also it involves, your process does involve writing goals for independence, because even though you're assigning a one-to-one aid, it's not that they get an aid for the rest of their, education here at Poway. Really, there should be the goal that we get them back to independence, right? And not every child's going to get there, but the goal should be that they reach that independence. So that is in place, the process in place. One of the things that interviews, though, did reveal is that your district is consistent in using the assessment process portion of it, but inconsistent in reviewing the goals annually for that independence. So revisiting that every year when you have your IEP to make sure that you are also taking a look at how they're progressing towards their goals for independence. Also, the assessment results are not always honored. So even though you have a process, a formal process in place that says X, Y, and Z should happen for a student to be assigned a one-on-one assistant, sometimes site and senior administrative staff circumvent that and go around that process and go ahead and assign a one-on-one aid to that student. Most of your one-on-one aids, when we took a look at it, are there, and it's related to behavior, and most of it is originated by staff. So those were just some of our things that we wanted to point out there. I'll let you go through that. In terms of your related service provider staffing, so these are those positions like school psychologists, speech and language pathologists, school nurse, occupational therapists, so on and so on. You do have some psychologists, RSP teachers, and SLPs, your speech and language pathologists, who have non-teaching or unique assignments. So for sake of our report, we did pull them out of the counts in terms of providing services to students. But you can kind of take a look there because that may be part of your service delivery model, but anytime you have staff that is not involved in direct services with students, we always say that districts should probably take a look at that. One of the things we wanted to point out with your school nurses there, even though it shows that it's significantly above the industry standard in terms of caseload ratios, your school district also has, health technicians at each school. You have LVNs that are involved in providing services to your special ed students who have needs. And so your model is more of a consultation model, and the comparisons that we're comparing it to are not including that. So we just want to make that one little caveat there. Let's see here. In terms of non-public schools and agencies, one of the things that we want to make sure the board is very aware of is that non-public school usage in San Diego County is naturally going to be higher than other regions of the state because San Diego County Office of Ed does not operate programs for the moderate and severe populations, and that creates a higher dependency on non-public schools. So it's naturally going to be a little bit higher because you need those more intensive services and a way to meet the needs of those students. It's an option when the continuum of services for students with those unique requirements are unavailable in the district. Your MPS numbers for 16-17 in the report are going to reflect that they're lower than they have been in the past, but one of the things we just want to make sure you understand, we were here in March, right, that we did our visit, and so those were to date. It looks like, those numbers would be solid as of June 30th, and I'm sure that the district could get you those numbers. But all indicators at the time that we were here is that you were making progress on lowering those number of students who are needing those MPS services, and that you were able to bring some of those services back into the district and meet those needs of students here in your district. In terms of MPA, one of the things, these are being utilized, these are your non-public agencies, these are being utilized in Poway for a variety of needs, mostly, a lot of times for shortage areas like your speech and language pathologists. That is something that there's a shortage across the country nationally. It's not just California, it's not just Poway, it's not just San Diego, it's happening up and down the state and across the country. So obviously you're having to pull in some MPAs for that. A lot of places are trying to use some unique recruiting tools and maybe some incentives to get some people to come to their district, maybe something you want to consider. But one of the things that was a little unique to your district is that the MPAs is being utilized for supervision of district employees. So your behavior support aides, a majority of those are district employees. You do have 6 or 7, I believe, that are MPA employees, but they are actually being supervised by MPA personnel. And our opinion is that Poway has qualified staff and the ability to hire staff within your district who could supervise those behavior support aides. And that would be much more effective because these are your employees. You want to have say into how they are being supervised to be able to impact services.
And this is primarily in the preschool area, preschool students with autism.
Even though we say that we write to the deficit model, this was a little shout out. We usually don't do this, I'm going to tell you. But in terms of mental health, your district has developed such a comprehensive system of support for social, emotional, and behavioral needs of your students. Truly, you have a written plan. You have the ability to implement that written plan. It has tiered levels of service. Really, your district is a leader in this area, and we just wanted to make sure that we recognize you for that. And your district is doing it all within the funds that are allotted to provide these services to your students. And so we just wanted to do a little shout out and a little bravo moment because we definitely recognize that as being exceptional. So,
and if Mike were here, he would tell you that he has given Poway as a recommendation to several districts. So you'll probably be hearing from a lot of people wanting to know how to do it.
Yeah. All right. In terms of due process, so this is when disputes arise over identification, assessment, educational placement, or the provision of free and appropriate public education. Steps are outlined as to how you resolve those disagreements. The number of filings for due process for a district of this size, from what we've seen up and down the state, is not excessive. You're right in line with districts of this size that we see. One of the most effective ways we think that you can help contain the due process cost is being prepared and taking action beforehand, so being more proactive rather than reactive. The executive director, I think earlier this year, and Joanne could talk a little bit more to this, was kind of taken out in terms of not having direct access to legal counsel. I think there was some concerns about just cost related to legal counsel, and then that has since come back into play. But we would really recommend that you keep that in place because we feel that the executive director does need direct access to that to be able to again be proactive and have that direction from the very beginning and help resolve these in the early stages of the due process.
I think the only thing I would add to that is it was our understanding that the decision on access to legal by frontline staff in the district, that was a district-wide decision, not just a special education decision. And so, but what was rectified is that there was a recognition recently, or at the time of this report, that special ed needs that routine access in order to be able to, to run a compliant and program. So that's been taken care of, but I just wanted to clarify that was a district-wide, at least as I understood it. So.
And last but not least, we took a look at your organizational structure. We took a look at similar K-12 unified districts for comparison who had similar enrollments, free and reduced lunch, price meal counts, English learner population, and that they were also single district SELPAs. So we took a look at Irvine, Mount Diablo, and San Ramon Valley unified school districts. And just taking a look right there at the administrative and clerical FTE, you can see that Poway's average for administrative is 14, and the average excluding Poway and the other 3 districts is 12. The administrative difference is in the number of program specialists, though. Your clerical is right in line with the averages of the other school districts. We always make that disclaimer that even though this is good data to take a look at, every district has unique needs that you don't always know about. So just be cautious when you're, comparing yourself to other districts and their numbers, because we don't know everything behind the numbers, right? All right. One of the things that our team recognized is that the program specialists, these are typically put in place to support students in terms of providing consultation to teachers and helping them, and other service providers as well, helping them in terms of program delivery, methodologies, teaching strategies, behavioral intervention, all kinds of things, professional development, because truly they have an expertise in those areas. We do feel that Poway does underutilize the program specialists given their expertise, because they are primarily utilized to attend and facilitate and act as administrative designees in IEP meetings instead of the principals and assistant principals fulfilling that role. We do feel very strongly that principals that site administration should be involved in that IEP process. They're the ones that are closest to these students, who know these students and these families, and that's just a more natural role than calling in a program specialist who's a little bit more removed to that IEP process and have that. As a former principal, of a K-5 school with 1,100 kids, it's tough making it to every single one of those, and I sympathize and I totally understand that. But having a strong program in place, those pre-identification services, helps immensely. It was years ago we put things in place, and even our very first year that we weren't doing it well, made a huge impact. And site administration can be involved in those.
I think the other thing I would add is, if you go back to your structure, which was two program specialist positions above the comparative districts.
Yeah.
There's two factors. One is that you are operating an alternative to non-public school program, which requires a little bit more support than typically you would have in other districts. And also the fact that you have this, the role of the program specialist is really tied up in IEP meetings. You need to have at least the number that you have now. Mm-hmm. So you wouldn't be able to make any adjustments, I don't think, unless
there were
made some changes.
Yeah. So, in summary, we think that you have a very good quality program in terms of your special education. Costs are in line in terms of your general fund contribution. Your due process is not excessive. A lot of times general fund contribution and due process are things that really stick out in our special ed studies. That's not a problem for Poway. Your MPS enrollment is not excessive, and it looks like it's going down because of the creative options that you've created in your own district to meet the needs of those students. But we just want to remind you that LRE is a bit stagnant. That least restrictive environment is a bit stagnant, and so you're kind of stuck in that traditional model, and the district needs to move at a faster rate if you're going to be able to keep up with those targets moving. All right, so at this time, I know I didn't hit my 15 minutes, sorry about that, but we'll go ahead and open it up for questions.
All right, I'm going to jump in then. You said that we are occasionally held up as one of the model districts for mental health. Looks like we need a model district recommendation for LRE inclusion models that maybe we can go look at. Do you have a recommendation?
We can definitely work with you on that.
Let's
Absolutely.
get one of those, or 2 or 3 or 5. That'd
Okay.
be great. Yeah, that's
All
a
right.
passion of mine that
Okay.
I'd really love to see us move there fast,
Yes.
as fast as possible.
Okay.
First, I just want to say thank you. This was a fantastic report, really comprehensive. I learned a lot, and just a lot of good, solid directives for how to move forward with improvements. So I really appreciate that, and thank you to Board President for recommending fake mat last whenever.
Thank you.
So there are a couple of things that came to mind. One, it has been a familiar theme, this, site-based decision-making can be great for innovation, but it's not always appropriate, and certainly in an area that's heavily regulated, requiring a lot of legal compliance at the state and federal level, it doesn't make sense to have sort of, differing hodgepodge rules or protocols at different school sites. I mean, if anything, that's where you need to have a greater amount of centralization. And so you were talking about, with regard to the special ed executive director, needing direct access to legal. I mean, that would only sort of bear fruit if we do create that centralized model, because the special ed the executive director is overseeing this, 39 campus district, and has to make sure whatever legal information she gets then is pushed out to the school sites. And then another thing you didn't, it was in the report but wasn't heavily touched on in your presentation, was the training. It seemed like staff complained there was a dearth of training, either orientation for the special ed IAs or continuous professional development. I don't know if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, let me touch on a couple things there that you said. In terms of site-based leadership, I'm going to tell you it does have a lot of positives. And just because you don't have to throw out site-based leadership, and I don't want you to think that we're saying to do that, all right? But in terms of special ed and the kinds of preventative type interventions and supports that you put in place for struggling students, right? Because almost every student, with the exception of some, start out their educational career in general education, right? And then they start struggling, and those are the students who kind of make their way into special education. That's kind of traditionally how it works. But what we're saying is that across Poway, because you are a very large district, it is imperative that the same kinds of supports happen throughout your district. That can still happen with site-based leadership, as long as you have a direction, though, with that. The kinds of interventions that are offered to students, so that regardless of where they attend school, they're going to get the support that they need. So I just wanted to clarify that one thing. In terms of professional development, just like anything else in education, but especially in special education world, that training, that professional development is key to moving staff along, whether that's initial training, whether it's continuous professional development to keep their skills current and to make sure that they're able to meet the needs of their students. It's imperative, not only for your instructional assistants, not only for your teaching staff that are delivering services, but for your site administrators to make sure that they are current on things that are changing in special education, things that are changing in terms of how to support children who are struggling. Professional development is key. Did you want to say anything?
And I think we would agree with you on the student study team process, which
Absolutely.
is prior to special education, that even in a site-based district, there should be some common standards that everybody follows so that the process is consistent. Otherwise, you do end up with schools, maybe some schools, identifying students for special education earlier than maybe necessary because they use a different process. So I think it's the lack of standardization of interventions across the district that we didn't see. So
Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Patel.
Thank you. Also, personally, I learned quite a lot from this report. It was very enlightening. I appreciate some of the background information you also provided. I have kind of a general question. When you went through this report and you identified some of these site-specific differences, did you provide any detail as to whether there was, or can you provide detail to staff where those site-specific differences are providing or contributing to deficiencies? Was there a trend in that way? Like, were any certain sites more deficient? Were there any trends, like socioeconomic trends or anything like that with those deficiencies?
we didn't do that in this report. That's
Okay.
kind of a deeper analysis that you can actually do internally
Okay.
because you do have a lot of that information available. I think we did have information about the number of kids that are identified by school site and whether whether those kids those kids that have been referred for special education assessed for it and not eligible. So you can look at all of those things. That information is available, and you could do it on a site-by-site basis. But I don't believe we did it here in this
didn't go-
report because it wasn't part of the scope.
On the training element, I also noted that you said parent training on some of those LRE and inclusion models is really important so that that parents can get behind those concepts when it comes to a 504 or an IEP. I think we could definitely step into that. That's one of our district goals anyway. I would love to see that happening. The other thing that really struck me was the lack of a strategic special education plan regarding program delivery, and I think that's something that really struck me, and we got to get on that and make sure that happens. But I really did appreciate so much of what was in here. There was a lot that I went, oh, thank goodness, and and some things where I went, oh, great, okay, that's a wonderful idea. I think we'll be able to make a lot of these things happen. So I wanted to also thank Tim Purvis and Dr. Robertson also really, I mentioned FICMAT and Dr. Robertson says, Tim Purvis, he's in there. So thanks to both of you guys too for making this FICMAT study happen faster than it might have otherwise. So yeah, and thank you guys. This really was a comprehensive, fabulous report, I thought. So yeah, I
want to
enjoyed
make
it.
one
Thank
final comment on the. I don't want to minimize the work that the staff has done with a work group that they had that started to look at the whole concept of least restrictive and co-teaching and so on. So some work has been done. The point that we were trying to make is that that was not a strategic plan. And districts that we have seen that are successful in implementing this kind of model have a comprehensive strategic plan that includes stakeholders, the principals, the general ed teachers, parents. You need to have representation from all of those groups so there's buy-in.
And I know you're going to get us the names of all those districts.
Well,
so we can go talk to them.
I can give you a lot that are struggling with it today.
We don't need those. We want the models. We want to go talk to the ones that are doing it right, so we can try to emulate some of that.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
And then I wanted to say a quick note. I just wanted to thank you for all the information and telling us how we can improve the lives of my peers with greater needs.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Okay.
Can I just want to ask a question about the term of art, the position control system. And so, say, like on page, I think it was page 8, you said it's impossible for a district's budget monitoring, and therefore decision-making process to be accurate, efficient, and effective without a fully functioning position control system. I wasn't before familiar with the term of art, and I just was wondering if you could just sort of flesh out a little more of that issue.
Well, from the non-finance person, Mr. Fine could go into great detail about position control. But a position control basically is that every position within your district is assigned a position number that's unique, and no new personnel could be added prior to a position and a position number being created. Is that correct, Mr. Little? I'm going to defer to you.
You did very well for not being a finance
for the non-finance person. So position control, though, needs to be in place because it basically keeps track of all your employees. It doesn't allow employees to be added or to be missing unaccounted for, which can happen in a lot of districts.
And especially in a very large district. And
Yes.
What we found is that there were pockets of data in human resources, in business, and in special ed, and they don't match. And so you have to have one driving force, and that's going to come from the business office. So, and this is not unique
It
to
is not.
Poway. Believe me, we find this wherever we go. But the goal is that all three of those need to be aligned. So.
Yes.
Okay, well, if we're ready to wrap this one up, did you have one? Okay, quick.
This will be quick, and maybe this is more in closing, but I'll echo some comments that some other board members might report. The copy of it is covered with highlights and underlines, and I'm grateful for having it been so comprehensive and yet written in such a way as that it's comprehensible too. Because if it weren't for this FICMAT report, I don't believe that board members or that may not have had a direct connection to the special education community would have had or gained such a thorough understanding of the issue within the district. Because as trustees, we get hit with a whole slew of topics, and sometimes we defer to fellow trustees who may have more of a direct involvement or interest in a topic. And this was helpful, and feeling as though at least now I'm halfway up to speed with Ms. Beatty and Ms. O'Connor-Ratcliffe on the special education issues. So thank you.
Well, thank you for your kind words.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I think I probably speak for all of the board here when I say to this end of the table that we can't wait to hear some reports and updates on how we're implementing some of these recommendations. All right.
Thank you.
That does take us to item C, which is our public comment period. And at this time, I will turn this over to Dr. Patel.
Yes, we have several items with public comment under item C. First, I'd like to call Nancy Brundrett. Perfect. I can read.
Good evening. My name is Nancy Brundrett. I have been a dedicated and proud employee of PUSD for 23 years. Tonight, I speak to you on behalf of the roughly 2,300 classified staff who also serve this district. The Personnel Commissioners received an email dated August 1, co-authored by Superintendent Phelps and Trustee Zane. In this communication, it stated that due to fiscal challenges outlined by Associate Superintendent Little at a July presentation, it was their recommendation the Commission suspend for 3 years the classification review, cycle, and salary study for the classified workforce, all 2,300 of us. One of the reasons given to eliminate the external study was to not lower employee morale by showing that they are undercompensated. We see this as an employee's right to know. I highly doubt that any classified employee does not suspect, if not know for certain, that they are underpaid. In fact, according to a salary study conducted a few years back, 97% of PUSD classified employees are paid below the 50% median for comparable jobs in comparable districts. In that same study, it was reported that PUSD upper management is paid in the top 3% of the nation. Let's rethink that. 97% of the 2,300 employees are paid below the 50% median, while upper management is in the top 3%. I ask you, knowing these facts, where does the district think the morale of our employees should be? Being grossly undercompensated does not give this district the right to deem us insignificant. Here are the facts. The request by the board and the cabinet to suspend the external salary study promised to us 1 year ago is inappropriate and threatens to tarnish the reputation of the Commission. The board, not the Commission, has a responsibility to balance these recommendations against the district budget. The Commission made a promise to the board and the classified employees that an intentional and ongoing classification review cycle for all existing positions occur. Removing that now breaks faith with 2,300 employees. We are aware that there is a budget deficit. However, we do not think this should preclude us from knowing what our worth really is. We are reminded daily of our worth from our community we serve by way of thank you to a bus driver who calmed a nervous rider, a custodian who made a campus a welcoming place, a health attendant who listens patiently to a sick child, an instructional assistant who patiently tries to communicate with a non-verbal child. These examples could go on and on. Superintendent Phelps met with PSEA in April. We engaged in what we thought was an honest, upright discussion, leaving us hopeful that she would include us in budget discussions, and in her words, we wouldn't be cut unless all other avenues had been explored. Furthermore, we have read in the paper that she wants to work with us and be transparent. We don't feel this has happened quite yet, and we certainly don't feel that suspending this study 3 years or even 1 year is fair. In fact, it's disingenuous. Some employees in this group haven't had their classifications updated for 15 years, longer than it takes to educate a student from diapers to diploma. We respectfully demand that this board find another way to begin to align the budget. I'm sure members of the tax-paying public, as well as all employees of this district, could come up with a laundry list of suggestions.
Thank you. Nope.
Just comment briefly that I had a very productive meeting, I believe it was 2 days ago, with the new president of PSEA, and I'm sure that the letter in question will be of discussion with the board at a future time. Thank you.
Next is Ms. Janet Latang.
Good evening, Superintendent Kim Phelps, Superintendent's Council, and School Board Trustees. At the PowayUSD School Board meeting, February 14th, 2017, Agenda Item D302 was approved, allowing the City of Poway to construct solar shade structures on the southwest parking lots of Poway High School. During the community comment portion of this meeting, I commented that I hoped that this solar project would be completed during the summer months so as to not disrupt PHS staff and students' school year. Unfortunately, construction for this project did not begin until the last week in July. It is estimated that construction on this project will not be completed until November. This construction necessitates the closure of a staff and a student parking lot. The pictures passed out were taken Tuesday of this week and shows the project progress so far. With these lot closures, by my estimate, there will be over 200 fewer parking spots for Poway High School student and staff. Also, these lots have been used for drop-off and pickup, so these lot closures impact additional PHS students and their families. Due to this construction, I expect that both staff and students will be arriving on campus extra early to secure parking, likely during the 6 o'clock hour since Poway High School classes begin at 7:30. It is likely that both students and staff will being dropped off and getting to their cars will need to walk further with their backpacks and their extracurricular equipment to get to their cars or rides. And think string bass, tubas, lacrosse bags, things like that, along with books. Special events such as Back to School Night in September and the Poway Marching Band Competition in October will also be impacted by these lot closures. I know that Poway High School staff and students are resilient, and we will rise above these inconveniences. And the project completion date in November will be here before we know it. Okay, so my request to the Administration School Board, can you guys please recognize that the PHS community is taking one for the team, putting up with these inconveniences every school day until this project is completed so that the district can save an estimated $54,000 a year in the Performing Arts Center costs. So this doesn't even impact Poway High School. It goes to the district. I'm sure that the Poway High School staff, students, and families would love to see your support and appreciation during this construction project. And should you want to visit Poway High School, there's still visitor parking available in the front of the school as long as you get there when the buses aren't there. Thank you very much.
Ms. Latang, as a point of information, this is a City of Poway project, not a PUSD project. But absolutely, I understand that, and I think that there's probably some scope for us to ask our Poway Unified people to try to get the city moving on this. So yeah, I appreciate it. And I'll make sure that Dr. Phelps had to step out, but I'll make sure she hears a recap of what you just said, because I know I was not aware of that.
Okay, thank you.
Falling behind that far. Thank you.
And next, it's several speakers on the same topic. First, Dr. Yan Yang.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Yan Yang, and I'm a board member of PUSD Parents Group, and also I'm a mom of a first grader at Montreal Elementary School. And first of all, I support the change use of educational technology classroom to optional and provide paper-based curriculum. And I will focus on the advantage of bilingual education in elementary school. We have a growing board of research that make clear the students who are bilingual have advantages, not only in their literary development, but in the development of problem-solving skills and other areas of cognition. What we see now is what bilingualism is a gift that we can give to our students and to our community. And this is a powerful shift in our historic perspective on bilingualism. We also understand more clear the importance of bilingual education to students' understanding of self and community. If you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his hand. If you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart. This is a very powerful statement. From my experience, as one of the leaders of PPG, we hosted a Mandarin post competition last year. More than 100 kids involved and participated in this event. Half of them came from non-Chinese or Mandarin-speaking families. And I can see the passion and the effort the kids put into learning second language. I think we all realize the importance of bilingualism and multiculturalism, but in fact, second language education is not included in public elementary school curriculum system. Together, I hope that we move together a vision of globalism and multiculturalism for every child. I hope we fulfill Americans' promise of equality of opportunity for all kids. It's an honor to do this together. Thank you.
Dr. Sandy Zhang.
Yeah, hi, my name is Sandy Zhang, and I have two girls attending Park Village, and one will be 5th grade, and the other one will be 2nd grade. So the first point I want to make is that the expensive iPad education may not be more effective than the economic traditional way of education. Both my girls transferred from Legacy Montessori last year. So my older girl, when she was at Montessori school, she was doing Singapore math, wordly wise, and they were using dictionary to find the new words, and they were learning cursive. And she was not exposed to much computer-aided program. At that time, I was a little bit worried, but actually everything worked really well for her. And she's very advanced in math and in reading. And after she came to Park Village, all her map test was at 99 percentile. And she picked up iPad very quickly. But for me, I lost track of her progress. And I don't know what she's doing at school. And from her score, and her math just hit a plateau. And also another thing is, so the iPad education has some side effect like internet addiction, and also the cause the eye strain. So she's already nearsighted, even she's just 4th grade. And so for me, I would prefer she stick with the traditional education, which has proven to work and which actually worked really well for her. And another thing I want to bring up is because they've been at Montessori for a long time, so at Montessori, every kid learn at their own pace. So that's why she can do very advanced stuff. And when she was at the 2nd grade, she was grouped with 3rd and 5th grade students. And I think at Park Village or at any public school, there are a lot of kids, but can we group them into maybe 3 or 4 different levels in each grade so that all the kids can learn at their comfortable level, and the advanced students won't get bored at school. So that's one thing we can learn from Montessori school. So next also I'd like to touch up on the second language. We all know we live in a world of globalization, and the learning second language has can make kids smarter. There are a lot of resources on the internet which shows that. And also from my own experience, because I was learning second language when I was 30, 40 years ago, which made a tremendous impact in my own life and make me can pursue my own dream here in the United States. So I hope the kids here can learn second language, and which will benefit a lot for them. So, okay. In summary, let's focus on the safe and effective way of education that has proven to work, like second language and the traditional way of education. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Next is Joy Lee, or Lai. If I knew a second language.
It is Joy Lee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joy Lee, and I am a proud mom of a first grader attending Park Village School. I believe that everyone here has a common goal, that is, under the current financial constraints, how can we wisely use our limited resources to maximize the teaching outcome? And here are my two proposals to PUSD board. The first proposal is to deprioritize further investment for digital books. I'm not holding anything against technologies, but the fundamental question here is whether or not the digital books worthwhile further investment. The cost of ownership of the digital books is higher compared to the paper books. And it's not proven that the digital books are superior platform compared to paper books. And there are also complaints from students and their parents about computer vision syndrome due to the work conducted on tablets. So maybe we should calculate the cost risk compared to the unproven benefit of this, and consider to lower the priority of further investment from a business case perspective. Second proposal is to introduce a second language for K-7 students. This is something that proven to be beneficial for kids when introduced at early age. Here are the reasons. Bilingual children have an academic advantage. Bilingualism improves lifelong learning skills. Last but not least, it helps to remove international language barriers and increase our competitiveness in the global job market. All in one, those are the soft skills and competencies that will have a lifetime positive influence on our students. So if we take a look at what our other countries are doing, our neighbor Canada is a bilingual country. The students are starting their French classes at grade 4. On top of that, they also offer free second language lessons, such as Chinese, from first grade. In Europe, 73% of the countries start to offer the first foreign language as a compulsory school subject between the age of 6 and 9. And after that, they started to offer a second foreign language after 9. Students in China, Japan, and Korea also start to learn English as a second language between the ages of 6 and 9. Lastly, please let me wrap it up. Deprioritize resource for digital books and prioritize resources to introduce second language classes in elementary school at early age. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you're able to come to a consensus on the points I made and taking that into consideration when planning the future for PUSD. Thank you very much.
Noah Lee.
I'm Noah. I'm not related to Join. But some of your board members might know me that I served on the Education Technology Advisory Committee from 2015 to 2016. I would like to bring up 2 points for your consideration regarding the technology use in school. First, overuse of a digital device have some harmful health effect on some students. It has been widely documented and reported that heavy use of electronic media can have a significant negative impact on student behavior, health, and school performance in East Asia. And most very recent NPR article report similar problem emerging in US. The article is Internet Addiction Real? Describe a typical California middle school girl in San Francisco. In Poway could be my daughter. And she was a straight A student, but after several years spent hours on internet, she changed from a straight A student to develop clinical depression, and was checked into the hospital because several suicidal attempts. And she recovered only after her family spent thousands of dollars check her into addiction recovery center for teens called Paradigm. Dr. Anna Lemke at Stanford University, psychiatrist and assistant professor in addiction medicine, says she's seeing classic addiction pattern of behavior in many of her clients who compulsively use the internet. A little like opium addiction here. And another psychiatrist says there's also increasing physiological evidence that the use of the internet can become addictive for some people. And second, education technology has not been shown to improve academic outcomes. Children that are heavy use of electronics may become adept in multitasking. Sometimes parents are proud of it. But they also lose the ability to focus on what is most important. A trait critical to deep thoughts and problem solving needed for many jobs and other endeavors in real life. The conclusion was supported by a recent global study by the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. Investing heavily in school computers and classroom technology does not improve students' performance. So in summary, I'm going to repeat the ETEC proposed. We should prioritize our funding to the program such as language immersion program, school libraries, GATE program, which have
Your time is up. Thank you. Time is up.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Next is Ying Su.
Good evening. My name is Ying. I'm a mother of a 5-year-old kindergarten girl. I also want to address some of my concerns about using digital devices in elementary school education. My only experience was learning from devices are very negative. It didn't help my learning process to be more productive. Not only spending most of my time fixing the technical problems, I also found I could not remember as much and as longer as I could compared to reading from paper books. I find I'm not the only one. Some researchers have shown that reading from digital media is more distracting, and the blue light made our eyes getting tired quicker, which reduced the time we can stay focused. Therefore, the memorizing time is shorter compared to reading the same contents from paper books. This made me worried about my daughter and the other kids who might have to use digital devices for their readings and homeworks at school. There are many rumors about how good using devices in education could be. People think it's less expensive. But if we calculate how much we need to invest on the devices, the system, the platform, and the maintenance, using devices is actually costly. Especially, it doesn't benefit that much to the learning process as people expected. Another famous rumor is that devices are vivid, which could help kids understand abstract concepts, such as 3 dimensions. Those sayings made people think paper books could not do the job. Actually, that's not necessary to be true. I happen to have some of my daughter's favorite book with me. You can see those are very vivid. It's 3 dimension, and it's not boring. It's not flat. She learned from this, and she had fun. She enjoyed. So I think the point is depends on how we want to weight it and which direction we want to push things to. I think it's important to help kids to cultivate a good reading habits. It will benefit their whole life, not just for learning. It's also for their future self-entertaining. They need to stay focused on the book itself, not some fancy functions from the tablets. So I hope the board could support reading from physical books and prioritize our limited budget to school libraries.
Thank you. There were 2 additional speakers on this topic, but we board policy caps it to limit of time. Jessica Zhu and Yulu Wang were in support of the same topic. And that is all for public comment under item C.
Okay. Nothing to add then? Okay, thank you, Dr. Patel. At this time, then, we move to our action items, and first up is D101. This is ratification of student discipline. Dr. Robertson.
Thank you, Madam President. Tonight we bring forward 1 ratification of student discipline for the board's action.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
That's a motion by Ms. Beatty, second by Mr. Zane. Is there any discussion on this item? All right, seeing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Item D102, readmission of students on expulsion. Dr. Robertson.
Thank you, Madam President. And tonight, for the board's action, we bring forward 2 student readmissions.
Is there a motion for this?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
And a motion by Ms. Beatty, second by Dr. Patel. Any discussion on either of these? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Item D201, approval of the Associate Superintendent Personnel Support Services Employment Agreement. Dr. Phelps.
Madam President, Board of Trustees, the district is asking to approve the Associate Superintendent Personnel Support Services Employment Agreement. This item is the board's discussion and recommended approval of a contract of employment with Mr. James Jimenez as Associate Superintendent Personnel Support Services. The proposed agreement contains the following material terms. The term is from August 28, 2017 to June 30th, 2020. The first year salary is $188,520. He'll be starting at step 4 on the Associate Superintendent salary schedule. The salary step increases each year according to the salary schedule upon receiving a satisfactory evaluation. He is entitled to receive the same health and welfare benefits as other district certificated management employees. He has the same vacation benefits as other certificated management employees under the district policy. Specifically, he will be entitled to 26 vacation days per year. He can accumulate a maximum of 52 days. Once he has accrued 52 days, he will accrue no more days. He will cease to accrue any more days until the total is below 52. Only upon separation from employment with the district, for example, resignation or retirement, will he be entitled to payout of any accrued unused vacation not to exceed 52 days. The Associate Superintendent will be entitled to longevity step if he doesn't retire before the first 10 years. The increases are as follows. He will receive 2.5% increase at the conclusion of 10 years of service in Poway Unified School District, an additional 2.5% increase at the conclusion of 15 years of service in Poway Unified School District, and then a 2.5% increase at the conclusion of 20 years of service only in Poway Unified School District, an additional 2.5% increase at the conclusion of 25 years of service in Poway Unified School District. The increase at each step shall not be calculated on a compounding basis. The Associate Superintendent will receive the same doctoral stipend as other district management personnel. The district will pay the cost of a life insurance policy insuring the associate superintendent in the amount of $200,000. In the event that the district decides to terminate the contract without cause, the associate superintendent will be entitled to compensation equaling his then current base salary for the lesser of 6 months or the remaining term of his contract. The payment will be made on a monthly basis. He will also be entitled to continued benefits for the same term as the base salary payments. That concludes my summary of his contract, and I'd like to ask the board for a motion to approve his contract.
Any questions for Dr. Phelps or a motion at this time?
Okay, I'll move to approve.
Second.
And on a motion by Ms. Beatty, second by Mr. Zane. Is there any discussion on this item? All right, then, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? This passes unanimously.
So at this time, I'd like to invite Mr. Jimenez to the podium to introduce himself, and in case he wants to say anything. I know that his wonderful family is also here, his wife, who's also a teacher in San Diego Unified, and his 2 wonderful children are here as well, too. So, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Phelps, our Board of Trustees and staff. It's an honor to come aboard with the Poway Unified School District this evening. I appreciate your support. I look forward to working alongside our staff and serving the community of the Poway Unified School District. I'm eager to get started and to get to know the staff in our school sites, the parents, the students as well. I want to thank you again for all of your support, Dr. Phelps as well. Thank you.
Thank you. You come highly recommended, so we look forward to it. That takes us to D202, approval of resolution number 02-2018, entitled Resolution Regarding the Elimination or Reduction in Hours of the Classified Positions as contained within Exhibit A, corresponding layoff of classified employees. Ms. Hueso.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. The recommendation before the board is to approve resolution number 02-2018 as presented. The actions outlined in Exhibit A are needed due to lack of work or lack of funds or due to a change in a staffing model. Upon approval by the board, affected employees will be notified within the required statutory timelines. Respectfully submitted.
Any questions or a motion at this time?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Dr. Patel, second by Ms. Beatty. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Did I get you, Ms. Beatty? Oh, you motioned.
Yeah, just you forgot.
All right, that's unanimous. Thank you. Takes us to D301, approval of monthly budget revisions, and I believe we
have a public comment on this.
Okay, so before I turn it over to Mr. Little, we'll take our public comment on this item.
We have a public comment. Wilson Kennedy.
Good evening, board members. My name is Wilson Kennedy, and you can just consider me a concerned father. I want to talk to you about the budget for the College Bound program. This is a phenomenal program with an excellent success rate for empowering ambitious students for college and their professional careers beyond college. Currently, there's only sufficient funding for 100 students from 5 Poway Unified School District high schools. I think this is a very low percentage. This means that interested students over this 100 student threshold will be waitlisted. There are already many students on the wait list for this year's program that actually starts next week. I'm recommending additional funding to meet the current demand for this amazing program in an effort to expand the program and allow for more students than 100 to benefit from this program. I'm going to wrap up now and leave you with these rhetorical questions. Are there any overfunded or less popular programs with excess funding that could be transferred to this more popular program? If so, please seriously consider transferring those surplus funds to this vital Poway Unified School District College Bound program. And my last question is, Are you honored to be part of the best school district in San Diego? I know you can't answer, but I'll just pause. I know I am. I'm honored to be part of the school district. My daughter's a senior. She's going to be going to Del Norte High School. She's been here since the 8th grade. We actually moved from Oceanside to this school district because it is the best in San Diego. So I've just asked for you to do your part to continue to have that honorable legacy and title and transfer any surplus funds if there are any. Thank you.
Sure. Sure. Mr. Kennedy, just for your edification, the additional funding for College Bound was provided and approved under the consent agenda earlier this evening. And if you look in your agenda packet, that's E304, and you'll see the funding.
Okay. Can you tell me the amount?
It was increased from 25,000 up to 50,000.
Wow.
Which was
So
the original
double,
request amount.
Double. So that means 200 students can go now?
Whatever that entailed in the original budget, but it was 50 that you had sought originally, and 50 what you ultimately got. Yeah. Correct.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments on this item?
No.
No. Okay, so at this time, I'll go to Mr. Little.
Thank you, Madam President. So we are bringing this forward this evening for the board's consideration and approval, the first of many monthly revisions to the budget. As you know, this is our first since the board adopted the budget in June. This represents the general fund only. We'll bring changes to the other funds in December at our first interim report. So on page 1 of 9 is the adopted budget that the board took action on in June, as I mentioned. On page 2 are the revisions that we're presenting this evening for your approval. You'll see revenues increasing to the tune of $5.95 million. As we mentioned when we presented the budget to the board in June, there was one-time money that the state legislature allocated that the governors may revise did not. So we did not factor it into our June budget, but that one-time money is now being factored into our budget moving forward. There's also a little increase in our ADA. So our ADA increased by somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 last year over projections, so that's an additional $420,000 that adds to the increase in the revenues. On the expenditure side, we have some additions of positions as well as some deletions of positions related to the new Technology Innovation Department. We have the $25,000 of the College Bound budget that was just referenced that's added back in, and then we've set aside some money for consultants to help the new associate superintendent and our innovation team get started and do the work that we need to do in that area. Page 3 then is the revised budget with those revisions enacted. So you can see our unrestricted general fund deficit then goes from about 15.4 million to 10.8, which is much better. And the overall combined general fund deficit goes from 17.25 at budget adoption to about 12.7 in the new budget. And then the following pages, of course, are the multi-year projections, which take those same factors and just roll them over into the prior or the subsequent years.
The only thing I would note is that later on in our information items, we're going to look at all of the attendance levels. So if there was more competition between all the schools, if everybody could get their attendance rates up above 97%, we've got a little more ADA to work with. That would be really nice. Any questions for Mr. Little? Okay, then is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve and just add that, you know, you're off to a great start. Mr. Azimzadeh seemed to come back every month and find more money, so the pressure's on again next month.
There we go.
This is the way we do it. Just every month, find more. That's good. Motion to approve.
I'll second. The finding money part too.
Thank you.
On a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Dr. Patel. Is there any further discussion on the budget? All right, seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, looking good, unanimous here.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was serious about the ADA thing, by the way. Let's get that going. Item D302. We have a public hearing and approval of resolution number 01-2018 entitled Approving a School Facilities Needs Analysis, Adopting Alternative School Facility Fees in Compliance with California Education Code Section 17620 and Government Code Section 65995.5, 65995.6, 65999.7, and 66,000 et sec, and making related findings and determinations. Mr. Little, shall I open the public hearing first? Okay, let's do that. At this time, the public hearing is open. If you have not yet put in a public comment card, come on down right now. We're taking public speakers on this item only. This is your public hearing. And this is gone. All right, at this time, I'm going to close the public hearing and turn it over to Mr. Little.
Thank you, Madam President. This is our annual endeavor to reset the rates for our Level 2 and Level 3 alternative school revenues. And these, of course, are based on our School Facilities Needs Assessment, which is dictated by Ed Code and Government Code, which we completed and justifies the slight increases. So we're going from $3.74 per square foot to $3.93 per square foot for non-mitigated new residential construction for Level 2, and from $7.47 currently to $7.86 per square foot for non-mitigated new residential construction, all in all, which will raise about $400,000 for the district in the new year.
Sounds like he may have just found some money.
Motion to approve.
And a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Ms. Beatty. Any discussion on this item? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Do we have an abstention? Mr. Sellers, I didn't see you. Aye. All right. That passes unanimously. Thank you. D303, award a contract for RFP 2017-12P grant writing services to California Consulting, LLC. Mr. Little.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. The board, I believe, and the superintendent and district staff expressed some interest in looking at some options around grant writing. We created an RFP, floated the RFP, had one respondent, and fortunately the one respondent that we had the chance to interview was highly qualified. Myself and my two colleagues to my left here interviewed California Consulting. They currently do work with Lemon Grove Unified, with Ramona Unified, and they have a good track record at San Bernardino USD, where their return on investment was over 300% recently. So all of those districts speak very highly of their work. Ms. Holly Bachman, the statewide senior director for the firm, is here this evening to answer any questions the board may have. We're recommending that the board use some of the one-time money to bring the consultant, the grant writer, on board for a one-year stint at $4,500 per month, and of course built into the agreement is if we don't see the results we expect to, with 30 days we can cancel the contract.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Any questions at this time?
Yes, Mr. Little. Are you aware that an alternative version of the contract was presented to board members?
Yes, we had two choices.
And you're recommending the one that's $54,000 a year. Why do you prefer that one over the one that's scaled?
I think for two reasons. One is the monthly stipend actually gives us a little bit more flexibility and comprehensiveness with the services they provide. So the monthly stipend involves a lot of research, and perhaps Ms. Bachman can speak further to this, but they'll go and do more research and dig deeper with respect to finding those grants that may not be readily available or readily publicly accessible. They'll also work with us to sort of develop a list of our priorities. The per grant stipend is more directional, so we would choose the grants that we would want them to go after, and they would spend their time just pursuing those one or two grant opportunities, as opposed to sort of a more broad view and broad approach to finding more opportunities for revenue.
Okay, that that wasn't made clear at the time that I was reviewing the contract anyway. I don't really have a response to that, other than it's not really, well, I guess it is. It's somewhat stipulated in the contract, but it's not really clear.
I can clarify.
Yes, I really would like to hear from her in particular on this and another issue in the contract. Thank you.
My name is Holly Bachman. I'm the statewide Senior Director for California Consulting, Board President, Superintendent, staff, and members. Thank you for allowing us to be here and for your consideration. The difference between the kind of two payment options is kind of what Mr. Little talked about, is that really the difference is, a distinguishment is the monthly retainer is really an all-inclusive services. So we do the needs assessment. We meet directly with your staff and your departments to dig down exactly looking at your priorities. We also then we do the research and identification, unlimited, and that's really key because with the per grant, that is, as Mr. Little referenced, it's directional. So for instance, there may be just a one grant or one-off grant that you want to apply for, then it would be a monthly or hourly flat rate, whereas with the monthly retainer, we do unlimited services and research for multiple grants. We could be applying for, on behalf of PowayUSD, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 grants, whereas the per grant would be just one. So that's a really big distinguishment. Monthly retainer also includes monthly reports from our grant. Your match grant writer comes out every first of the month. That gives you a whole documentation of what's been researched and what's anticipated, as well as what's pending for funding grants, as well as what's been awarded. So with the monthly retainer, you get that monthly report. We also meet monthly with your staff or your departments. So it's kind of a white glove service in providing all of those services, all-inclusive services. The per grant would be, all of those services would be more a la carte. Those would be all kind of rated at an hourly flat rate. So for instance, per grant, if you wanted the needs assessment, we would quote you a separate fee for that, whereas a monthly retainer includes that needs assessment. Same thing with if you wanted to do additional grants, that would be quoted separately as well if you decided to do the per grant. So does that make sense, hopefully? Does that clarify?
Yes. I noticed there's no provision for expenses in the monthly contract as well. So all expenses are included in the retainer fee.
Exactly. And, and what we say to school districts with the ability to really provide the white glove service with the retainer is that it's really very comprehensive of the services we provide, whereas the per grant is very focused. So it's unlimited services for that $4,500 a month versus, as a large school district as you are, you're going to it's more bang for your buck for a monthly retainer, because you're going to realize that there are actually a lot of funding for STEM right now and STEAM. There's also, in fact, listening to some of your community members, and also your board members about funding for technology, funding for even for buses, community learning programs. So there's a lot of funding opportunities that we've been able to identify that I think could be a very good fit for your community for schools. So, so the monthly retainer will be able to service that.
Thank you. I agree with you. It's not going to take much to accumulate, well, somewhat of your skill anyway, to accumulate $50,000 in grants, so we don't have a whole lot of downside risk here. So.
Absolutely, and just for example, a success story with San Bernardino USD, although a little bit larger district, but we brought in about $3.3 million for them, and their ROI was over 300%, and so it's very rewarding to be able to work with school districts, and we also work with cities. That's another opportunity for funding as well, is considering partnering with the city as well as local community organizations that will expand your opportunities for funding as well. But it's rewarding to see the funds that do get put forth for the programs that you have, and it's been great to see the success with a lot of these cities we've been able to work with, and we will do that, and we'll find the money for you guys. So,
thank you.
Any other questions at this time?
Oh,
Ms. Beatty and then Mr. Singh.
Just a follow-up on the expense. Section 5 is expenses. Were you talking about different? One's different? Because that one is, because that's, client reimburses for reasonable out-of-pocket and listing typical and usual ones. So expenses are additional.
So I apologize. I did err in I was simply they were condensed on different pages. What type of expenses normally come up in the pursuit of these grants? It lists sort of laundry lists: mileage, conference calls, copies, binding costs, postage, parking, travel, and lodging. I don't know under what circumstances you would incur those costs, particularly the travel and lodging.
We have actually had, if we're a lot of grants that we have applied for on behalf of our clients have been federal and state, and we've actually have had our grant writers drive to Sacramento and to deliver the package of the application at like 9 minutes to the deadline. And so again, some of those circumstances are a little extreme, but if from a distance, or if there's a conference, if there's a meeting that extends the time of the meeting, some of these meetings can expand over. If it's a really if it's a federal grant, some of these are so comprehensive and document heavy that a lot of those certain costs may incur. But the travel, definitely for traveling, or depending on where the grant writer is, and also if there's any events that would deem to either help and support the grant application, those are kind of this examples that might incur those costs, if that makes sense.
Thanks for coming here this evening and answering these questions. I too, like Board Member Sellers, had some questions when I was comparing the two versions of the agreement, and also some ideas came to mind. And but there may be an underlying legal reason as to why an idea I have is not feasible. Perhaps you can answer it. Is there any preclusion within the government realm of grant writers getting a commission on grants that they receive?
We get that question a lot, and technically, legally, it's not, but ethically, that's up to for everyone's own opinion. For us as a company, and for the over almost 14 years we've been in business, the way we structure our payment is it's a completely separate fee. All the funds that we apply for on your behalf, you get those full funds, and you guys those are the what's with the budget. Now, there's been special circumstances with a specific grant that may allow for administrative costs and then maybe build in the grant writing services. But for us, a lot of all the federal, state, and even private foundation grants, all of them are really direct. Almost a lot of them require that all the funds get directed to the programming. So with our fees, we completely separate and always have from day one, just to make it very clear that for the services that we're providing is completely separate to the funds that you guys are receiving from the grantor or the fundor. So I don't know if that makes sense. So for us, it's no commission, or if like, hey, if we get you $100,000, we're going to get 20% commission. That is not how we do business. We do a separate fee for our service as a consultant, and then whatever funds you guys receive, you get that full amount directly to your community or the school.
And is that your exclusive business model with all your clients?
Absolutely, yeah. We work with actually, if I know if some of the board members realize that, but 60% of our clients are school districts. And then we also work with cities, municipalities, and special districts, and of course nonprofits. But school districts are our passion, and we've seen the most success, and have really seen an impact of improving programming and funding for the different services you provide.
So I'll forego the idea I had as far as a retainer against earned commission. It doesn't seem to make sense in this particular instance, but you also started to answer one of the other questions I had. If it's 60% of your clients are educational entities, as to where you get the information concerning the available grants that are out there. For instance, last week, Dr. Patel and I, when we were in Sacramento, we learned of 3 in particular ones with the, relating to the California Educator Development Program, the Classified School Employees Credentialing Program, and the Bilingual Professional Development Program. I assume that those are already on your radar, and then you pursue those for all school districts, or how do you learn about the grants that become available?
Well, for being in the business for over 14 years, and of course with all of our value-added relationships we have with either the state, federal, and local, we have come across that with some of those grants, we actually sometimes don't know about those, and so we encourage our clients to let us know because there are so many. Now, of course, the value add that we have with you on the other side is that we do one of the things that we distinguish ourselves from anybody else is that, well, a couple things. We have professional grant writers. Our company solely does grant writing. That is the only thing we do. Whereas, you may have people that do consulting like advocacy or PR. We only do the focus of grant writing. So that our grant writers are full-time professional, 15, 20, 25 plus years experience of grant writing. And so, with that, we are constantly on the pulse from legislation. We don't do any lobbying or legislation, but we do have those relationships that, exactly to your point, being in Sacramento, saying, hey, we know that there's going to be a pipeline of funding coming down the road, just to give you a heads up. We also have relationships within those different entities that always gives us a heads up as well. So we're constantly digging and researching. We're asking our clients to let us know to kind of cross-reference, and so it's a team effort.
Motion to approve.
All right, that's a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Mr. Sellers. At this time, discussion, and I want to weigh in here. I'm a little unhappy that we only have one company who came back and answered our RFP, but it sounds like it's probably a good one. I think that for this cost, to me, it's worth taking the chance, and particularly if we're not going to see that 300% return. It looks like we can cancel within 30 days. So, for me, this is yes. Let's go for it, because if we do get a 300% return on this, we've found some money again that our district needs.
I would like to just make a quick note too with our company, just to give some assurance, is that we are the largest grant writing firm in California. We've also I just got my grants report awards list. We now have hit 816 competitive grant applications funded. And then we also, in terms of numbers of funding, now this obviously is split amongst like cities and also special districts, but a majority of educational funding is almost at $1.6 billion for all of our clients. So, we have a great track record, and we work very closely we will work very closely with all of you to make sure that you get the most bang for your buck.
Okay, we got the pitch. Any more, Ms. Beatty?
So I had originally come in thinking my preference was the contingency, not contingency.
The per grant, or as needed?
Yeah, not understanding the difference between, the services provided between the two. So since that one's pretty much taken off the table, we're looking at the one that costs $54,000. So I just have a couple of thoughts. One, a couple of unknowns. One is you didn't give us basically a ballpark dollar amount of how much those expenses we can reasonably expect, just like employee benefits.
Mm-hmm.
How much will the expenses roughly add to the $54,000 so that we can sort of see exactly, what we're purchasing, say, on an annual basis. And then the other question I would have is, I don't have a notion as to how other districts do this. Do they have someone in-house as a grant writer, either part-time or full-time? Do districts our size, do they outsource it? And I don't know if the board would like to at least take 30 days to get that information to find out about what other districts are doing comparable to ours, and then also perhaps assess the costs of bringing someone in part-time.
I am inclined to say we have a bird in the hand right now, and it's low risk. I agree. I would love for this to be an in-house person if it made sense. We don't have that right now, and it would take some real ramp up to get that going. I see a contract before us that makes sense to me. I would like to approve it today.
But it makes sense. We have to understand, one, we don't know what the expenses are because we haven't been told that, and two, there's no guarantee that we'll get a return on our investment. So we have to go into it. We always want to go into things, not looking at the best case scenario, but the worst case scenario, and making our decisions accordingly.
When there are expenses, I mean, I would hope that the grant writers wouldn't turn in their applications like at the 9th hour, so that there is hotel charges, hotel charges and airline fees and things like that. I mean, is there a process where if the districts are going to be charged those additional expenses, is there a procedure where you do consult for approval or inform our staff to anticipate those costs?
Absolutely. I mean, that communication is key. With each and every department head or staff person that we work with, with our very professional, skilled grant writers, they can actually anticipate. We write a lot of the federal state grants, and we can actually inform all of you or your staff to say, hey, this is going to take a certain amount of time. We better get this started, a month, 30 days, 60, 45 days, so that we are not rushing and we're stressing out and we're putting stress and labor on your staff, because that's one of our key, services, is that we take the burden off of your staff to be able to provide the service and getting the grant submitted on a time or early basis. So basically communication, when you talk about excessive fees, or, what we also is, this is more in the per grant, but we provide a not to exceed level to say, hey, this is amount that we can't, or we budgeted and we can't go above this amount, even with the additional fees. We're very flexible in terms of being very sensitive to the different budgets. And that's kind of where we've kind of came up about with the monthly retainer, because, we actually have school districts paying much more than that. But depending on the scale of the need, as well as the size of the district and the budget, we customize to every client's needs.
So let's say, for example, the board went ahead and approved your contract this evening. What would be your next steps, and what can we anticipate as far as timeline?
Absolutely. So we would, I would probably help assist with, we would be matching you with a very skilled grant writer. We also schedule a kickoff needs assessment meeting that would include any of your department heads or staff that would be part of identifying your needs, what your wish list is, and strategy of how we can get information for those different grants. And then in the meantime, we will be identifying and working with our grants team. We also have a grant manager that monitors all of the grants that are out there that could be available for the school district. So that would be really the next step, is we set that needs assessment kickoff meeting, and then really start identifying the grants that you guys want to apply for, and then actually start writing them. Because that's the other piece too, from a time frame standpoint. If we wait 30 days, you could be potentially missing some important deadlines that may be available for some of the funding. It's kind of ramping up right now during this time of year. There's a lot of grant deadlines coming up.
Thank you.
You just addressed one of the questions I had, is as far as your familiarity with any grants that may be coming due within the next 30 days. But related to that, what is your average, if you could say, preparation time for any given grant? I assume that they vary, but more often than not, did it take 2-3 weeks to prepare for a grant application, or is it 2-3 months per application?
Unfortunately, it's going to be varied, because if you have a federal application and it's very comprehensive, it could be 2-3 months in preparation. Typically, with a state application and ones that we write all the time, no stress, and being able to get all the information. I would say, up to like 30 days. That gives you a good cushion. Now, a lot of the depending of getting information from your staff also impacts that time of deadline too. So that also, that's where we work very closely and be very proactive, working individually with all of you to make sure we get that correct information and the data that's needed for the application.
I have one question. I'm just anticipating you with how many clients you have. Do you anticipate any challenges, or have you faced any challenges with multiple clients competing for the same grant, and how do you handle that? Do you have different grant writers working with those different clients for the same grant?
Yes,
so that you don't share information, or?
Oh, of course not.
Okay.
No, we get that question a lot. So client confidentiality, obviously though, with information that is submitted, it is public information, but that's after submission. All of our clients that we work with are confidential in terms of the information that we share. And when we do have a same grant application with maybe 2 school districts, absolutely they're assigned a different grant writer.
And then kind of follow up to that, if we provide you with information on a grant, do you then take that information and share it with other schools, or is that exclusively ours?
No, because it would not make sense, because each school is different, and we would not be able to, necessarily apply that information to another school district. So our grant writers are very skillful and also very creative in how they can, do the language and be able to get it on the application. But as far as distinguishing between clients, they're all separate and individual.
Thank you.
I guess my last comment would just be, if we decide to move forward with this, I'd like to at least propose that we perhaps set a date, 6 months, a year or something.
Benchmark.
For, yeah, exactly. For the board to have staff bring back the, where we are and. Right, but I mean an analysis as to, whether we want to move forward. I don't know, what a proper time period would be, but.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
And just a quick interjection, we actually, on a smaller level on our end, we do that on a monthly basis for you. So you're going to be getting a monthly grant report that's going to state how many grants were submitted, how many are pending, what's the amounts of those grants, what type of grants, and what's anticipating. We work very closely. I mean, your Poway is very positioned very nicely with a lot of grants that are coming up that I'm just thinking off the top, and I'm not even a grant writer. So, so there's a lot of opportunity, and we provide that documentation for you every month.
All right, so we know it's actually not to us. So we're asking, let's us see that occasionally too. All right, we did have a motion by Mr. Zane, and I missed the second. Second by Mr. Sellers. Thank you. And I do have a note here that our student board member, Ms. Mishra, would you like to cast your first vote?
I would like to cast my first vote in favor of this.
That wasn't so hard. Nice job. All right, for everybody else, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous with our student board members' preferential vote as well.
Thank you so much. We're very honored and very excited to work with all of you.
All right, 300%. We're looking for it.
Yes, we can do it. Teamwork.
Thank you. And with that, we'll go to D501, approval ratification of architectural services contract with LPA Incorporated for the addition of 4 classrooms at Del Norte High School. Mr. Little.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. As you know, we're embarking on an expansion at Del Norte High School. We're putting in 4 new classrooms of sort of a pre-checked, pre-DSA approved component modular construction. What we're bringing forward to the board tonight is the design services related to that project. As you know, LPA is one of our pre-qualified architectural firms, and they will, if approved, will do all of the design, the bid documents, they'll do the construction administration, they'll get us through DSA, they'll do obviously the project closeout when we finally get there, and be our design firm of record. The cost would be $109,810 paid with Community Facility District funds.
Motion to approve.
Second.
On a motion by Mr. Zane, second by Dr. Patel, is there any discussion of this item? Right, I have a note here that we have a desire for a student preferential vote on this one again. Ms. Mishra.
I would also like to cast my second preferential vote in favor of this motion.
2 in a row. You did it very well both times. All right, so everyone else, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously with our student preferential vote as well. All right. D601, approval of resolution 10-2018, entitled Resolution to Initiate the Process of Establishing Trustee Areas and Elections by Trustee Areas. Dr. Phelps.
Madam President, Board of Trustees, tonight we bring for the Board's approval of Resolution 10-2018, entitled Resolution to Initiate the Process of Establishing Trustee Areas and Elections by Trustee Areas.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
On a motion by Dr. Patel, second by Mr. Sellers. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Yay, begrudgingly.
Any opposed, begrudgingly or otherwise? All right, that passes unanimously. We've already passed through our consent items. That takes us to G, our information items. G309, the California Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act. Mr. Little.
Yes, thank you again, Madam President. Let me turn to that page. I was jumping ahead to the DBAC page here. All right, so as you know, the primary goal, and this is for information, obviously only, the primary goal of the formal bid process is to facilitate competition from a broad group of potential vendors and contractors. Some of the typical steps of a formal bid process include developing the scope of work, advertising, clarifying the scope through addendums when necessary, bid opening, and obviously bid award. All this is done before the project can be started. The processing time from preparation of the legal advertisement to award the bid is approximately 4 to 8 weeks. In order to reduce the time to commence a project, the California Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act, affectionately known as CUPCA, was enacted in 1983. Doesn't quite go that far back. So this program obviously was created to expedite the process and to allow a bit more flexibility in the procurement model and methodology. There's a summary of the effective bid limitations in your packet. High level, CUPCA raises the formal bid limit. It allows for shorter procurement and project timelines. It allows project staff and district staff to focus on other needs and greater needs. And obviously projects can be started in a much faster pace. It doesn't remove any of the restrictions and constraints around competitive bidding for those projects over $175,000. So very quickly, the summary of the effective bid limitations. So for public projects of $45,000 or less, they may be performed by employees of the district or by a negotiated contract through a purchase order. Public projects of $175,000 or less may be contracted by informal bid processes, and obviously all of those above $175,000 go to formal bids. So we'd like to ask the board's consideration moving forward, its consideration entering into the CUPCA methodology, and be happy to answer any questions at a future meeting if that were the will of the board.
At this point, you're looking for consensus from the board or direction from us to go ahead and start the process so we can formally vote on it at a future meeting?
Correct, yes, thank you.
Okay. Any questions then or discussion on this item? Ms. Beatty.
Just a quick comment. So I support this, but you know, it would be good to have assurances that as a public agency we continue to have open and transparent processes.
Absolutely.
To make sure we're doing things in a fair manner.
Absolutely. And one of those open processes and transparency mechanisms is a pre-qualified pool of contractors which the board will vote on and approve. And from that pool, that's the pool we go to for these types of projects that don't meet the threshold.
And potentially there'd be some sort of rotation.
Exactly. Rotation, informal bidding, three or more of those contractors would be asked to bid.
Thank you.
This makes sense to me because so few of our projects would fall under, well, almost nothing is under 15,000.
Yeah.
So this makes sense to me. Is there consensus on the board to
I like the in-house
direct?
option, too.
I mean, yeah, I agree. Is there consensus here? I'm looking down the row for heads nodding. Consensus too. Okay, so I think then there is consensus here to direct staff to prepare and bring forward to a subsequent board meeting for proposal all of those 3 bullet point necessary items. One more nod of the heads down here. Okay, we've got it. Yes, please. All right, we'll vote on that officially at another date. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
G310 is our enrollment report. The 11th one for 2016-17. Mr. Little.
Yes. As noted, our enrollment report is for month 11, and you can see that the attendance rate for month 11 was at 96.92%. So it was almost as close to 97% as you can get and not quite be there. We did have a net loss of 56 students over the prior month, and then we have a breakdown, obviously, by schools in the subsequent documents.
And this is what I was referring to when I said, let's have that healthy competition go and get everybody above the 97% attendance rate. So go, go, go. Who wins? I think it was Canyon View. Canyon View won. All right, everybody get on it. Beat Canyon View. Okay. Any comments or questions on this enrollment report? All right. New principal, I wonder if she knows. We'll let her know. Heat is on. All right, G311, report of 2016-2017 regular education attendance rates. Ron Little. Oh, wait, this was the one I was.
That's the one, exactly. So this is the ADA. This is enrollment translated into ADA.
There we
right?
go.
By school.
Okay.
And some did exceed the 97% threshold. Way to go. And others were very close.
Any questions on this one? And the same information presented a different way. All right. Nothing? All right. Thank you. G603. This is our District Budget Advisory Committee, our DBAC. Dr. Phelps.
Madam President and trustees, I'm going to ask that Associate Superintendent Ron Little share information regarding the process and where we are in regards to our District Budget Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Dr. Phelps. We're very excited to be working with our community members and our staff in forming our District Budget Advisory Committee. As you know, it'll be a superintendent's committee, which will be charged with making recommendations to the superintendent to assist in sort of closing the deficit and hopefully find some other solutions and resolutions to the budget challenges that we face, particularly looking into 2018-2019. The committee, we're seeking a broad representation from various stakeholder groups. So I'll just quickly go through the list here. We have 3 current district and or school site administrators on the committee. We'll have 2 district certificated staff members, 2 high school students, 2 district classified staff members. We'll have a representative from both the PFT and the PSEA units. We will have, who did I miss so far? Then we will have parents and guardians as one group and community members or business owners as another group. Originally, we thought that we would do 2 parents and 2 community members, but the response that we received from the community was quite impressive, and we had a large response, and so we'd like to increase that participation level to 4 of each, so 4 parents and 4 community members. We're doing a small committee of us. The Associate Superintendent to my right, Burks, is participating in the interviews, as well as Tina, the Executive Assistant to the Superintendent, are doing interviews with the parents and guardians and the community business members. We're through most of them, so we're now debriefing in our selection. And some of the criteria that we're using in that deliberation is we're really looking for sort of big picture people who have inclusive sort of consensus building skills, have some budget and financial acumen, obviously, but also sort of have a creative side and can think outside the box. We're looking for some cross-representation across the entire district, as well as just a good diverse pool of candidates to form the committee. So as soon as we have that list finalized, which should be in the next week, we'll share it with the superintendent for her approval and the board's a blessing as well. And then we anticipate the work beginning later this month with the committee.
Fantastic. Any questions for Mr. Little on this?
Just a quick comment. I know that there was a lot of parent interest. I'm happy to hear that you expanded it's still probably the parent and community members, still probably a small fraction of the total that applied, and wish we could just harness all that talent and dedication and at least use it for other things going forward, because we've got it's an untapped resource, our parent and community members. So anyway, thank you.
No? All right. G604, revision of board agenda format, administrative procedure 1.8.1, organization of board agenda for regular meetings. Dr. Phelps.
So, Madam President, Board of Trustees, I just want to bring forward to you a revision to our administrative procedure 1.8 for the board's discussion. We just want to share with the board, I know I've been in conversations with each of you about my desire to change the board agenda to be a little bit easier for the public and for staff to follow, and to streamline a little bit to make it a little bit more effective and hopefully allow our meetings to run a little bit more efficiently. So we looked at different models that different districts did in regards to how they organize their board agenda. And so the information is in the board packets, and primarily some fundamental things that we changed on there is that instead of calling out action items separate and discussion items separate, information items separate, they'll be organized by areas or departments, such as under PSS or under business or under technology or under learning support services. And then all of their items will be listed all under there, and then it will be delineated out, identified as whether it's information only, action only, action discussion, and things under each separate department. In addition to that, we're recommending to move to the end of the meeting the board member reports as well as the superintendent report, so that it'll allow us to have the ability to get to the action of the board agenda and meeting right up front, and then therefore not keeping a lot of the public who are waiting to hear about a lot of these items and be able to speak and give them the opportunity. In addition to that, we received some feedback from some of our high school students that instead of coming every month, that they proposed a recommendation, and perhaps that our high schools can alternate, and so like 3 would come 1 month and 3 would come the following month, and they alternate every other month. So those are some of the changes that we're proposing to make in the agenda and the flow of our meetings, and so we wanted to just bring that to the attention of the board and the community and our community at large.
Just a quick question. Will this go into effect for our September meeting?
Yes, that's what we like to have proposed, that it's going to start next month.
Dr. Patel?
Yeah, just one discussion point I brought up with Dr. Phelps in our meeting was that we do have to, I noticed that we didn't have approval of agenda and approval of the consent calendar. So those
yes, we're going to add that to be 3.3 will be approval of agenda sequence, 3.4 will be approval of a consent calendar.
Perfect, thank you.
Is the agenda sequence, does that need to be approved if there are no changes, or?
That's where we find out.
Yeah, that's where we would find out if there's no change.
Yes, I'm in full support. I like these changes. So thank you.
Trailing Dr. Patel's question, moving the consent calendar and what happens to 5.0 on this?
That is the consent calendar.
That is consent calendar?
That is the consent calendar. So 5.0 is the consent calendar.
So it wouldn't fall.
So it wouldn't fall 3.4. I take that back.
Okay.
So 5.0 would be all of consent calendar.
And then you said that you'd consolidate by department functionally
Right.
the action items as well as information items. I assume, though, that purely for the purpose of consent calendar, you would pull all those department items out and throw them under consent.
Correct.
Okay.
It would be all together, but grouped together by department.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And then I had a question about how you said high schools would alternate month to month. How would that, could you elaborate on that?
So previously, all 6 high school representatives would come and speak to and share out their different events. Instead of all 6 of them, we would have 3 on one month and then the other 3 on the following month. So they would be alternating every other month versus all of them coming every month.
Okay, so it's just the high school representatives.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Were you trying to get out of every other meeting? I saw that. Any other questions or discussion on this item?
Sorry, what?
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, all right. We are all set. Looking forward to it. Trying something new. All right. Oh my gosh, we're at the end. This is our adjournment. Item I. The next regularly scheduled board meeting will be held on Thursday, September 14th, 2017 at 6 p.m. right here. We are adjourned at 8:44.